We're running a bit behind. People can come in and sit down during the whole thing. First of all, this is on redetermination of benefits. My name is Jim Wiedemann. There is a Minnesota Ditch Viewers Association, and I'm president of that. Chris Christensen's vice president. He's helping out today. Ron Rehnquist is the secretary. He's just along for wait. No, he's going to help out too. Sorry, Ron, I had to pick on somebody. Yes, you are. All right, what I want to talk about, a few things. The original ditches, most of your ditches, and some of you know it, some of you don't, and they're done in 1900, 1920s, even 1950s. The way they viewed back there was all different than the way they view now. They did just wet acres. They still viewed, good number 2, they still looked at it, according to the statute 321, we'll hit all this later probably, but the viewers report each lot, 40-acre tract, or fraction of a lot. That's what they look at. That's what they looked at back in 1920s also. But they had 3 guys, I always called it the 3 good old boys. It was just 3 guys, and there's qualifications for it. I'll get to that in a while. But they had 3 guys, and they went out and they looked at 40 acres, and they said, well, how many wet acres do you think are in there? Wet acres, that's the term. Okay, one guy'd say 3, one guy'd say 4, one guy'd say 5, 4 it is. So that 40 would get assessed for 4 acres. Okay, the wet acres, that's who paid for the system. So if you go to, if right now farming practices have changed, you got acres up here. Here's a ditch coming here. All these acres go in there. All these acres go in there. This guy didn't have to pay for anything. Maybe 1 acre. All his water goes down. But this guy had to pay for the whole thing. And who fixes it? Who maintains it? It's this guy down here. The go to Deb's ditches now. The next one. This is Martin County. Deb's ditches down there. Some of these we did. I just want to look at a few of these. First of all, we did JD 10. There were 2,580 acres that were benefited back in the, whenever it was done. 2,500, what was the year on that? 10. It was done in 1909. There's 2,580 acres. We did it in 2004, 5, something like that. We did it, we came out with 7,680 acres because we take all the acres now. Every acre that drains down there gets a benefit. Okay. Another one I want to hit, look at County Ditch 11. The 4th one down there about, they had 2,312 acres in 1908. Okay. We did it in 2009 and we had 11,000 acres. Now if you think about that, I'm doing one right now in Swift County, Swift and Chippewa, and that thing, the original in 1916 was 400 acres. Now we've got 15,000 acres. Okay, so think about that buffer strip. Who's going to pay for it? That one up there is 400 acres. That's who's going to pay for the whole thing. Okay, but there's 15,000 that should pay for it. That's why one of the reasons they want to do a redetermination. So actually, the people that are paying for that thing now are all the people down here. So if they got to buy the buffer strip, they're going to buy it from themselves. They're going to take the money out of this pocket, and then they're going to give it to the guy, and they're going to put it back in this pocket. So that's who's paying the whole thing. That's what one of the reasons you want redeterminations. The go to 305, next one. Okay, this says the viewer's appointment and qualifications. How do you become a viewer? I always tell people what you need is a heartbeat. Okay, you need a heartbeat. But here it says all the stuff, and down here it says the drainage authority. Remember, that's usually the commissioners. Kurt talked about that. They have a commissioners meeting, then they say, well, we recess as commissioners. Then they come back, the same 5 guys are sitting there, and 5 people, pardon me. People are sitting there, and then they become the drainage authority. Drainage authority may establish qualifications for the viewers. They make up their own mind. Do you qualify for a viewer? They have to make up their mind. We do have things like the Viewers Association people come to, and you can become accredited if you attend some of the meetings, pay your dues, and so on. And it does help. We have seminars there. Okay, the next one. It says, how do you do the viewing? Right here, this is most of it. The extent of the basis, what we look at is an increase in current market value. What's that worth right now? If you have proper drainage in there, what's it going to be worth? Increase in market value. Okay, you can go to the assessor and get some numbers there, but it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Is that 40 sold for $10,250 just because it's got good drainage on it? Okay. Next one, increase in potential for agricultural income. That's the one we kind of hang our hat on. That one there, because we can show that if there's no drainage versus proper drainage, well, proper again, recommended drainage, we can show an increase in ag income. And the other one is increase in value property as a result of different potential land use. What I always say this one is and it's more than that, but it's kind of like that's bad farm ground right now or a wetland. If you come with a good ditch, you can change it from farmland over to housing. You change the land use. Okay, to the next one. There's one more in subdivision here, right down here. The acceleration. Property has been altered or modified to accelerate the drainage of water from the property. What that gets is you get a lot of guys that have acres way up here on a hill. Sure, their water runs down, but they say, well, I don't need that. I don't need that. I didn't do anything. Water comes down anyway. I haven't got it tiled. Yeah, but you accelerated. How did you accelerate it? You tilled it. It runs off faster than if it was a native prairie. Or you mow your lawn. Mow your lawn, the water's going to run off faster. So there's where we can get that one. Get that one. It sounds like I'm after people. Next one. The first thing that we do is we establish the watershed. This used to be tougher than it is now. We'd have to go out there and figure out where the watershed. You look at the map from 1920 and you know, you take what you can from that. But now the computer does this for us. The computer does the watershed. Here's ditch JD 80 in Martin County. And so the computer does that. How do they do it? Go to the next one. They use the LiDAR. Here's the LiDAR. We have it on our computer. It's 2-foot contours. Remember the contours? You saw these topographical maps when you were a kid a long time ago? They were 10-foot contours. A lot of things can happen in 10 feet. These are 2-foot contours. It tells us quite a bit. Okay? Then, next one. We've got digital DEMs, digital electronic modeling it's called. And this, you can kind of see where the high spots are. Kind of shows us a little bit. Notice how sometimes we went right on here. You suppose that's perfectly straight. Reason being, what farmers do, this guy tile up there, this guy's tiling here. It's property lines. Okay? The first thing we do is we look at the soils. I got this old book. I brought this along. Remember these books? Got soil and water? Yeah. And in the back, you got all the soil sheets. Okay. Each one of those soils, we go out there and count the soils per 40 or per parcel, just like the law book says. Take the next one. We count all the soils. Here's one. Got 887B, L85A. So we count all those. We used to count those with those little dots, you know. That's why I have trifocals now. Okay. But now the computer does it. So we go out and confirm it. Okay, after we count that, go to the next one. Each one of those soils has a different characteristic. How bad it needs drainage. That's all in this book. It's also online now, but it's in this book. This is what we're kind of pertaining to. All these soils, here's a Glencoe, an 84A, a 3W. Here's a 85A, Nicollet. That's a class 1 soil. That kind of tells us how bad it needs drainage. Now, if I talk to the farmers out in the field about this, I say, well, you got some Okoboji or Glencoe on this one. You got some Glencoe down there. You know, there's a hole down there. He says, yeah, I know. Well, if he farms it, he knows that needs drainage more than the rest. Okay, so we go through each of those, and soil characteristics. I wrote this down so I kind of try to keep it in order. We also use the photos when we're out in the field. We use the current photos that you can get from the FSA office. We also use the 1991 photos. I don't have them up here, but 1991 photos. If you look at those old photos, you can see tile in there. You can see the tile because of when they took them. That sometimes helps quite a bit. I get out to this farmer out here and he said, no, my water goes the other way. Oh, does it? Look at the map, tile comes this way, okay? So it comes in. Oh yeah, he says, I guess it does. Also, we've looked at the 1938 photos. Didn't put those up here either. The 38 photos, why would you ever want to look at that? Had one up in Kansas County that what it is now, it's a guy that owns 40 acres and he's got into CRP or something, or hunting ground. He's got the wetland there and he lives there. That's all he does. And that's what he wants. He wants a deer there. He doesn't want a farm. But does he get a benefit from the ditch? Yeah, it was farmed in 1938. He chose to do something else. That's fine. But there was a benefit for him. So 38 photos work sometime. The next thing, I can find where I left off here. Oh, the plat books, other things that we use. Plat books, the assessors and auditors, you guys can figure that all out. So we take all the acres within the watershed, okay? First thing we do is we look at the 40s, and we're going to classify them A, B, C, D. We look at a 40, and if you got a 40 by a tar road, county road, 2 acres comes out for your 40. You don't have to pay for that. The road authority is going to pay for that. If it's a township road up there, no. If the county here and a township there, you're going to pay for 37 acres. Say you have a full 40. Okay? You're going to be assessed in those. We look at A, B, C, D, and an A acre, if you have no drainage out there at all, an A acre would be slough. Standing water, cattails, it's a slough. Okay, that's our A. Okay, remember the old guys just went A's and B's, or wet acres? This is a standing water. So that's going to benefit the most if you have proper drainage, because it was a slough, then it comes out to be farm ground. So that's probably going to benefit the most. If you have no drainage out there, a B acre, I always say it's the grass around that slough. You know, it's good for hay or pasture. Well, if you have proper drainage, recommended drainage, that's going to gain quite a bit too, because now you got good farm ground there. A C acre, it's more than this, but I usually say it's the hillsides. The hillsides, it's easier to understand. The hillsides, they never used to tile that. Didn't need tile. Now they tile it. They run tile up there. Why? Because they make money at it. And they need the deduction too. So they do tile it. So C acres are going to benefit some too. The D acre is always, I kind of figure the hilltop. It's more complicated than this, but the D acre is a hilltop. It does not need subsurface drainage. Will it benefit? Yes, it will. Well, how can you tell that? I don't need drainage up there. Because if you've got a 40 or quarter, you're not going to go in there and plant that hill and then that hill and that hill. You're going to wait so you can get in and plant the whole thing. If you have proper drainage, recommended drainage, you're going to get in there maybe 4 or 5 days earlier. If you get in 4 or 5 days earlier, we can show that you get a better crop up there. Facts will show that. So we come with an A, B, C, and a D. There's other things that we come up with. Get a dry mouth. You must think this is water. Got a lot to do. Other classifications, I'll just hit a couple of these. I come up with A minus sometimes. Well, we all do. A minuses. And A, remember, is here, so that benefits the most. Well, sometimes this ditch comes through, and it did make good crop out of that. All it did was make hay and pasture. It was a slough, and your ditch isn't good enough. You know, it isn't recommended drainage. So it made it into hay and pasture. That's an A minus. It isn't going to benefit as much as the A. I classify D minuses. He doesn't, but I classify D minuses. D minus, I say, is your building sites. Your building site. The building site, the water comes off your roof, comes down pretty fast off the roof. You cut your lawn, the water goes down my ditch. You get a benefit, you have to pay. I call them D minuses. Ron said B minuses and C minuses for upland water, and a big watershed, did one with 210,000 acres. Well, if you're 30 miles away and the water comes down there, what do you classify those? He's got some B minuses and some C minuses. They're classified different, okay? Just want to let you know that there is that available. That works good. Okay, government tile, the next thing. Another benefit that we give you, if you have, not government, county tile. If you have county tile on your 40-acre parcel, it's a benefit to you, okay? If you got a 40 and you got a 24-inch county tile going across it, all right? We give you a benefit of about $2.25 per foot. $2.25, a 24-inch tile costs a little more than $2.25 a foot. Okay, why do we charge you that? Because that's about the cost of an 8-inch tile. Your 40 only needs an 8-inch tile. Well, how come you get a 24? It's because all those other guys' water's coming down here. So we give you a benefit there. If he doesn't have county tile, he's got to, on his 40, he's got to spend his own money to get county tile on there. So there is a benefit there too. to the tile system. Number 12, next one. Okay, this is our worksheet that the computer did. We used to write all this out. On each 40, here we got 39.488. Yeah, let's take this 40, northeast, southeast to section 3, da-da-da-da-da. The computer counted our soils, a 113, a 114, 130, and a 956, I suppose that is? Yep. Okay, if you look at the soil, the characteristics of the soil, you'll find a 113 is a 2W. There's more in that book or on the line than just the 2W. I'm just hitting that lightly. There's more things. There's a water table in there. That tells us how bad it needs drainage too. Where is the water table in that soil, in that Webster soil? Okay, a 114, that's that Glencoe that I said 3W. All right, and that tells us the water table in there is a +1 to a -1. Computer said you had 3 of those, 5 of those, 2 of those, and 25 of those. What that says? Yeah, no more than that. Okay, so we round them off, get up to 40, and we look at that. How could you? Oh, that's a 6, isn't it? Must be. Yep. Okay. So we look at this, and we look out the window. We look at the computer because you got the LiDAR there, the 2-foot contours. You look at that, and you look at the soils. You find that Glencoe soil. It'll be sitting out there on that 40. And there it is. You look out the window. Yeah, there it is, all right. And then there's a contour in there. There's 6 acres of it. Well, there's a 2-foot contour wrapped around there. How big is that? Well, there's 5 acres in that contour. The rest is outside there a little bit. Probably on that soil, that Glencoe soil then, we said there were 5 A's. 5 that would have been a slough. 1 that would have been grassland around it. Okay? A 2W soil usually is C's. Usually is a hillside. We've seen it A's, I've seen it B. I've seen 3 W's. That should be an A or a B. I've seen them as an A, a B, a C, and yes, a D. A D. Now an A is going to maybe get a benefit of $5,500 per acre. I'll get to that later. $5,500. The D is going to be $500. Makes a big difference, doesn't it? What happened is that soil scientist probably did it on a when he did the workbook, back there, it was probably on a Friday afternoon. He wanted to get out of there, so he just kind of. We see a lot of them that are mismatched, mismarked. They have to be because it's a hill. That's one reason everybody wants this computer to just, boom, there it is. You got to look out the window. I look at the computer. I look at the LiDAR sheets. I look at the DMs, the colors, because they're so pretty. Okay, I look at that, and I got it all figured out. Then you look out the window, oh, that's different. You got to look at the property. Otherwise, we're not doing justice to the landowners. Which one on? Oh, other things that we do. I said we look at them all. We come up with an A, B, C, D. We had 5, 7, 25, 1. This must be one road. We got a 1 over here. Must have been a road. There's another road. 2 roads out of that one. 2.45 because we wanted to round it off, stuff like that. Okay, then we have non-benefited acres, NBs, non-benefited. Okay, used to say non-contributing, but legally you can't do that. So it's non-benefited acres. What's an NB? A non-benefited acre is an acre that doesn't need a ditch. It's maybe a slough out there. It always was a slough. It's always going to be a slough. It's a wetland. We aren't privileged to know the wetlands are. You can go on your farm and get that map. We can't go and find his farm. They won't give it to us. Okay, but we look out the window, and if it's a wetland, a lot of times we call it NB, non-benefited, or building sites. You got a building site there, and there's trees, non-benefited. Sometimes we'll call those non-benefited. So they go off in a category. I'll show you later that you don't have to pay anything for those. Okay. The other soils we have is wetlands, I said. Oh, the wetland acres. When somebody's got a wetland, they say, well, the farmer says, you got to take that out. Not on a redetermination, we don't. A wetland, you had a wetland there, and they did that ditch back whenever they did that ditch, 1920. You could have drained that thing in there. You chose not to, or the guy that owned the land before you. So that ditch did give that acre a benefit. You chose not to use it. Now, if you come with an improvement to it, we're going to dig it deeper, do whatever you're going to do, improvement, then that acre can't be improved. So it's not on the improvement sheet, but it is on a redetermination sheet. The CRP, a couple of these things. Oh, I'm going to get done in plenty of time. Oh, it's got so much to cover. There'll be questions. CRP, some of the guys say, well, that's in CRP. Shouldn't have to pay for it. Well, CRP is 15 years, 10 years, whatever it is. It's just a management decision. We charge you just the same as if it's farm ground, okay? Because it can be plowed up. Then we've got some rim land. Reinvest in Minnesota, Kurt talked about that. Okay, rim land is permanent in the government. I wonder if anything's permanent. But they say it's permanent, you can never farm it. So they say, well, I shouldn't have to pay anything for that then. You know, we got to get them to pay too. Because our idea on rim land is we go A, B, C, D, and we'll charge for the A and the B, not the C and the D necessarily. And this isn't written in stone that it's always this way, because every project we do is different. Every single ditch, I don't care which one, there's something new in it. You know, so, but usually what we try to do with rim land, say you got 40 acres, we go to A, B, C, D, we'll take off the C's and the D's, because the C's and D's, you're not going to get any ag income from this rim land, you know, it's permanent set aside. But the C's and D's, you always could have put those in rim. The A's and B's, if you didn't have that ditch, they would have been a slough. They would have been like this. You couldn't have put it in rim then. Wouldn't have qualified, because you have to have a cropping history on in order to get it in rim. So we'll leave the A's and the B's on, take off the C's and D's. Another one is CREP. That's permanent set aside. And we have these on our computer, the layer for what's CREP, what's CRP, and so on. The couple other things. DNR, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. The DNR, U.S. if it's government land, Ron, say what that is. How would you?
It's owned by the government, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Go ahead.
No, there's a separate statute in dealing with properties held by the state that states that you must view benefits to the properties based on the purpose for which that property is held. In and of itself, that does not necessarily guarantee that there aren't benefits to state properties. But you must consider, just like with RIM, you must consider the impact of the project on those state-held properties. So if it's held for conservation practices, you have to understand that most likely the DNR is not going to break up the uplands and start farming them and have accelerated runoff or benefit from a drainage perspective. Wetlands themselves may be benefited if the ditch system provides an enhancement or opportunity for enhancement and management of those wet acres. The DNR has vegetation control because the ditch provides an outlet where they can raise and lower water levels. That can be found to be a benefit to the state because it enhances the purpose for which the state is holding that piece of property.
We have had, I had one down by in Lyon County a while back, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Okay, they had 200 acres. It's tile system, well, it's ditch and tile. Trying to simplify it. There's a tile that comes this way, runs down here, runs right down here into a big ditch and goes away. Okay, they wanted to improve this tile. There's 200 acres right in the middle that belongs to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Well, they wanted to go through there. They said, well, we'll put a solid pipe through your land then. No, they wouldn't let them step foot in there. So instead, all these landowners had to take and go around U.S. Fish and Wildlife to give these guys access. Okay, that U.S. Fish and Wildlife would not pay anything, zero. We viewed it just like we do every other ground, A, B, C, and a D. We viewed it. They would have had to pay on this, I forget, 2.1 million project maybe, something like that. They would have had to pay $166,000. Well, first of all, who bought that land? U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Who bought it? It's your tax dollars that bought it, right? It's all their tax dollars too. Okay, U.S. Fish and Wildlife have it. They will not pay. They should have had to pay 168. They didn't. You know who had to pay for that? All those other landowners. Okay, so we left it on the sheet, and we said, well, they're not going to pay. You can take them off. So no, we're going to leave it on the sheet. And then we left it on there in final hearing. The commissioner said, well, the Drainage Authority, pardon me. They said, you have to take them off. They're not going to pay anyway. Can you do that? And I said, oh yeah, we can do that. Here's the sheet. We already did it. We had it here. But I wanted all those landowners to realize what was going on here. They were paying more because of that. And it's legal. He just told you the law. That's fine. We can live with that. But eventually, this is one coming down the line, I think. Eventually, they're going to have a wetland in there because that's what they do. And they're going to need an outlet for their overland water. Where's the outlet going to be? Well, it's going to be a ditch, of course. Well, you can't get in there unless you pay an outlet fee. Well, how much do you suppose the outlet fee should be? Yeah, that's coming down the line. Give you a little heads up there. Yes?
So you haven't touched on roads yet. I'm curious to hear about how the roads figure out.
Yeah, I've got that coming up. It's a good question, and it's not written in stone. Exactly. One other acre we got here is industrial. I go with some teams that do not do industrials. We do with Ron. In industrial, especially down in Martin County, there's so many hog buildings, and I mean, it's just all over. Well, industrial, should that be just a D acre or a D minus, like a house? They have more runoff on that if they have 8 hog buildings out there. Or bin site. We had one over there, a bin site that was just huge too. And then the hog buildings also need drainage around them, so they can have some C acres there because they need subsurface drainage, plus it runs over more. So we call them an industrial sometimes. And it could be the C and the D added together, the values or something.
That is the point 3, the third criteria that Jim talked about, where a ditch system allows for a change of land use. Rather than being agricultural or having an income, the ditch system provides the outlet so that they are able to develop alternative land uses. And that can be hog buildings, that can be subdivisions, anything that doesn't fit the normal mold of description of the ABCD can be a separate item or a separate class, and the values can be applied to that specific property if that's the only one like it, different than others.
Okay, so now where we're sitting on this project that we're doing, we've got the ABCD. For this one, it's a 2, 4, 22, 11. Okay, this one is a 5, 7, whatever that is, 1. Okay, now we have to find a value for each of those. How much is it going to benefit? You got to have a number. I want to know how we're going to split this up. So you have to have a value for them. So we do what I call number crunching. Ron, what do you call it?
Income approach.
Income approach, okay. Number crunching is better. Go ahead, next one. We start with this. This one, voodoo economics. Yeah, no, we wouldn't do that. Oh, yeah. Sometimes we take a dead chicken and wave it over the numbers, and then that's what we get. This particular one, JD2, I guess we did in 2013. The date is sometimes important because things change. You know, corn was $7 a bushel. Now it's $3 a bushel or something like that. Things change. We start on this particular one. This was in Martin Watt owned by Ormsby, isn't it? Yep. 185 for corn, 50 for beans. We said is the average yield around there that we're going to use. Down there, they can get 225 bushels an acre too. And then some guy's going to say, well, I only get 150. We take kind of the middle of the road. We don't want to take the highest number to get the biggest dollars. Don't want to take the lowest one. Beans, we say 50. Some places, sugar beets, we've had sweet corn, alfalfa had in Stevens County, wheat, peas, different things, depending upon the area. Most of the time it's corn and beans in Minnesota. We use $4.25 a bushel for corn, beans, $12 a bushel. Okay, back in that time. What would we use now? I wouldn't use $3. I might use $4 now if I did it today. Because sure, it's $3 right now, but this is supposed to be an overall picture, 25 years or something. Okay, that number times that number is this number, that is that. It's a 50-50 rotation, 50% there, 50% there, boom. That's how much you make. Whatever that number is, can't read it. 693.13. That's how much you can make on recommended drainage. Okay, you got expenses. The expenses that we consider seed fertilizer are right here. We go by different ways. The farm management classes, University of Minnesota farm management classes, have got some papers that show this. These things, you don't have to see them, but it's got all these numbers written on there. Plus, we've got experience. We kind of know what the numbers are going to be, what they're using. So for corn here, we used 120 for for seed corn, 50 for beans. You could use 135 there if everybody went rib, triple stack, but not everybody uses the most expensive seed. Some people use pretty generic seed, okay? Some people take it out of the bin and plant it. No, you can't do that, okay? So then we got chemical, crop insurance. I check with my insurance agent and say, in this area, what's the insurance going to be? Not everybody takes out all the hail insurance. Again, you have to kind of go a little bit each way. Crop drying and so on and so forth. Fuel, repairs, and miscellaneous. We get that probably from the farm management. If you look on there, well, first of all, add all those up, you get 450. Add all these up, you get 165. It's a 50, we got to get interest in there. Interest. What we do is we say, maybe you had to borrow the money for your input costs. Okay, if you're borrowing the money, we say 6% for a half a year, I think is what we're using. How much is that? Well, 6% right of that for half a year is that much. If you're not borrowing the money, you don't need an operating loan, you still should get some money for your investment. So we give you 6% for half a year. That's how we come up with that. We get this one, same thing over here. 50-50 rotation, so we get that expense, you add them up, you get that expense. First thing that people see in here is, how about my cash rent? There's no cash rent in there. There's no machinery cost in there either. And I got cash rent. Okay. Reason being, you got to pay cash rent whether it drowns out or not. You're still going to pay the cash rent. What I'm trying to find is, what value is this ditch to these properties? How much added value is the ditch? Okay. Then I take these numbers, go ahead. And then I come through this. And it's not too bad. Okay. There's the numbers that we had, 693 and 316. First thing I got to do here is take the pre-project condition. Remember, I'm trying to find out what good this drainage is. What's the value of the drainage to this system, or to all these acres? Well, you got some already. A acre, that was a slough, so you got 0. The B acre, remember, said if there's no drainage, it was hay ground. Well, hay ground's worth something. How much is it worth? In this area, we said $100 an acre. Sometimes it's $70, depending on which area in the state we're in, probably. Okay. The C acre, remember that was a hillside? I said you always did get a crop there, but now if you tile it, you get a better crop. We said, how much of the time did you get a crop on that C acre, the hillside? And we said 80%. I'm not saying it drowns out. It doesn't drown out, but it gets a little peaked. So this one's about 80%. How do we come up with that number? There are some sheets that we can go through, and I could start going through there, and then you'd fall asleep right away. But what we usually do is, we've got experience. We know what the C's look like there. We know what the soil is. If the C's are all down here sometimes, maybe you don't get that much. Maybe it's 75%. If the C's are up here, maybe you get 85% of the time you get a crop. We said 80% here. So what I did was I took 80% of that big number, that's 693. That's how much you're going to make, minus your production cost. You know, those numbers I've got. You got that all the time on a C acre. Even without drainage, you got $237.78. The D acre, remember I said you can get better drainage? Oh, okay. The D acre, remember I said you always did get a crop up there? 95% of the time. You can gain a little bit by getting in there early, okay? So we come up with this. That's how much the D acre gave you before recommended drainage, okay? Cost of private improvement. What this means is, to get this fabulous number that we're going to end up with down here, you're going to have to pattern tile. You're going to have to pattern tile your own farm, okay? The A acre, you can pattern tile that pretty tight, right? This one I think is 60 foot spacing for that one. Well, how much is that? We depreciate it over 25 years. How much is it? We take 43,560, the square feet in an acre, divide by 60, because you want 60 inch spacing, you get a number, okay? Take that number times how much is your pattern tiling. This one we said $1.25 a foot. Plow in plastic tile. Plow it in plastic tile, how much does it cost? We said $1.25 here. Could be more, maybe 1 4-inch plastic, whatever, or it could be less too, okay? Take that times that, you get $907. We round it off to $900. That's what you need. We got to leave some money back there, because that's what you need to pattern tile that A. The B, we got a bigger spacing. I think it's only 65 foot here. Okay, so we depreciate over 25 years. That divided by 25 is that. Fair enough? Okay. Not that you have to understand all this, but what I always tell the engineers is I go over this for people so they don't think we just pulled a number out of the air. I like to tell engineers that because, you know, they do that. Now, I don't know if I got any engineers in here or not. Down here, the A acre, we've got 92%. If this thing, this A acre, if this is patterned, if it's pattern tiled and it's tiled properly, hydraulically, you know what it's supposed to be, you're still not going to get a crop 100% of the time. On that acre, This one, we said, I bet you 92% of the time, if it's tiled properly, you're going to get a good crop, 92% of the time. How do we get that? Again, we got some numbers that I could go through, but what I like to do, there's three of us guys, what do you think? Well, sometimes, depending on the watershed, sometimes your A's are way down here. Wow. If you got pattern tiled, you got it tiled right, you're probably only going to get 85% there. Sometimes our A's are up here. Well, if it's tiled the way it's supposed to, you can get it 95% of the time you get, okay? Judgment call, in our opinion. Okay, so 92% of that number up there, 693, let's take the B's. This one changes. 96% of that 695, this is how much you're going to get. Minus your production costs, remember all the expenses? Minus your production costs, you get a net income. That's how much income you can get with recommended drainage versus no drainage. That's the difference on a B acre. Production cut right here. Okay, but remember, I'm trying to figure out what good is this drainage to that acre. You always got something from that acre. That B acre, you always got $100 because it was hay ground. Well, I can't lay claim to that then, so I got to subtract $100 out. Remember the C acre was the hillside? You always did get $237. I got to subtract that out then. I can't lay claim to that. Okay, so I subtract that out, I get this one. This is my increased income. In order to get this, you got a pattern tile, right? Pattern tile, so I got to leave that money back for you. So I take that out. Then I get that number. What this number is it's what you can get difference from no tile versus recommended drainage. What I want to know is what's the current, say that again? Present value of that over 25 years. We want to kind of depreciate this over 25 years. The reason we use 25 is because it's after you get on the cap rate sheet, after 25 it doesn't increase very much. 25 is about where it should be, we feel. Okay, what's the present day value of $284.85? Answer, at 2.5%, cap rate of 2.5%, answers that. Another way that I always explain this is how much money do you have to put in the bank at 2.5% for 25 years? You go to the bank, say you want 2.5%. They're going to tell you get lost. But 2.5%, if you put $5,250 in there and then wait a year, then take out $285. Next year, take out $285. Next year, take $200. After 25 years, it's down to zero. That's the current value of that, okay? That cap rate, that number that we use, and we worked through the same here. The numbers we got, 5250 for the A, that's going to benefit the most, I said. The B, 3955, that makes sense. The C, the hillside, is going to benefit about 1960. And the D, 638 on this particular project. Each one is different. This cap rate number, go to the next one. This is the cap rate we use, 25 years at 2.5%. You haven't got it there. It's 18.4224, I believe it is. It's right there. That's the number that we used to multiply to get that 5,250. Okay? So we take it off the cap rate. What's next?
Tell them what a cap rate is.
Oh yeah, cap rate. That's good. See, Ron, that's where I took you along. Okay, the cap rate has changed some. Example, a while back you could buy land for $10,000. And corn was $7, you could rent it out, you get cash rent of $400. I'm just taking numbers out of the air to make this understandable. $10,000 an acre you pay, you get $400 cash rent. That's a 4% return, right? 4%, okay? Well, now you can't get $400 cash rent anymore, at least not from me. But maybe you can only get $200 cash rent because corn prices are down and stuff like that. Farmer just isn't making that much. So what's the price of land? 10,000? You know, it's about 8,000 now. But it didn't go all down as much as the corn price. So what's your rate of return? $200 out of $800, that's 2.5%, isn't it? How about that happen? Okay, 2.5%. Okay, that's kind of the cap rate. That's how we adjust that cap rate, which one we're going to use. We used to use 8% back in the 80s and 90s, I guess it is. I'm getting to the roads. Hang on there, okay? Then the reconcile sheet. Go ahead. Okay, what this is a reconcile. If you remember the three ways that we look at this: increased market value, increased ag income, and change in land use. This isn't a change in land use, it's still a farm. Okay, we did it by increased ag income, but we reconcile it with the sales. We look at the assessor's office, assessor's office, and find the sales in that area. You look at the CPRs or CPEs, whatever, the crop equivalency. What kind of land have you got here? This is how much it costs, so you get comparable stuff. And on this particular one, whatever ditch this is, we had 2 acres that we said were A's, only 2. 52 that were B's, there's only 697 acres, C's and D's. This is the percent of A's, B's, C's, and D's. So this is the value that we said, oh, this is a different one. We said 49.50 for this ditch, whatever one it was, 41.40, 50, da, da. So if you take a weighted average, you take 0.3% of that, plus 7.5% of that, plus 63% of that, plus 29% of that, you get this number. That's our weighted average. What I'm trying to do is justify, rationalize it, that this is what it was before any drainage. You get recommended drainage, and then you got this. Do the same thing. I said this is what it was worth for ag purposes before, 0 of course, because it was a slough, da-da-da. And get this from the assessor. Take a weighted average, you get here. Take the weighted average, I said we got this. Take the weighted average, this is what it's worth after recommended drainage, you get that. It's not always exactly the same, it's never going to be exactly the same. But we reconcile it so that we're doing what the law book says. Okay, next one. Pentatile A, B, C, D, da-da-da, cap rate, reconcile sheet. Examples of viewers, yeah. Okay, the viewers report. The spreadsheet that the farmer gets in the mail, or the landowner gets in the mail, looks like this. All kinds of numbers. That's what it looks like here. Remember the A, B, C's, and D's? There's the A value, times that. There's the B's, times that is that one. 32 C's, times that is that. 6 times that is that. And our tile is over here too someplace. You add up those big numbers, and you get the gross benefits. This is, yeah, that's not, doesn't, yep.
The requirements of the viewer's report are name and address of the property owner. Legal description as by 40-acre tract, government lot or smaller, and we typically, because of the space, we don't write out legal descriptions. We say which quarter it's in or government lot, section, township, range, and it does require that we put acres in tract. Acres in tract is many times one of the most confusing things to landowners, because it says that the southwest to the southeast is 40 acres. Most of them automatically assume we're charging them for 40 acres of watershed.
Right here, that first one. There's 40 acres in tract. Is a law. Does we have to have acres in tract? He's going to complain. He's going to say, oh, my water goes, just about all of it goes that way. It doesn't come here. Yeah, right. We've got 1, 5, 3. We've got 9 acres that's coming our way. But it says acres in tract. Get the next sheet. This is what 320 in the viewer's report says that has to be on our viewer's report. Everything that Ron said has to be there except one thing. That's the parcel number. It doesn't say the parcel number has to be there, but if we don't put it on there, the auditors really get mad. They want that. Yeah, you're all shaking your head, uh-huh. Okay, so that's why we do it, because we're so easy to get along with. Okay, this says what has to be on that spreadsheet. All that farmer wants to know, I keep saying farmer, I should say landowner. All he wants to know is what's it going to cost me. We have to give him all this because it says you have to have all that. Next sheet. And you have to have all that too. And all he wants is what it's going to cost him. Okay? And that's in here. But he's got to find out where to read it. Okay? That one. Yeah, next one. Okay. I'm doing all right. You won't have much questions, but we'll get to that. Remember that big spreadsheet that I said it was over here? A, B, C, Ds, and you get all those big numbers. You add up the big numbers over here, and then you get that big number, gross benefits. Gross benefits. That's the gross benefits, the most benefits you can have from nothing to recommended drainage. Well, these drainage things that we have out there, most of them in 1920s, all they were for is to make hay and pasture out of that slough. It was a slough and they wanted hay and pasture. So they came with a tile to do it. And I did it, made it hay and pasture. Can't have that now. Input costs are too high. That farmer's got to have a crop there because he's spending a whole lot of money planting it. So he needs a bigger tile. The recommended drainage from the NRCS says if it's a tile system, a 1/2 inch runoff. If it's an open ditch, a 1 inch runoff. What that means is a 1 inch runoff, depending upon the area in the state. There's some sheets, if you look at it, down in Martin County, maybe a 3.2 inch rain has a 1 inch runoff. 3.2 lands all over there. Some goes down in the ground, some goes back up. 1 inch runs off all those acres within 24 hours. That's what the ditch is supposed to take. The tile systems that you have out there, the old ones, they aren't very good. This particular one, we said, and this is the efficiency rate, the hydraulic efficiency. I can't take all those the gross benefits. This land isn't getting that. What's out there, I'm doing a redetermination now. What's out there is only getting 60% of it because that's all the good that tile is. It's 60% hydraulically. Okay? So I take this times 60%. Now there's another factor, proximity rate. Proximity rate, I've got hundreds, 85s, 85s, 70. What that means is if you've got the tile system here or the ditch right here, I look at every 40, remember? If you got a ditch on your 40, your proximity rate is 100%. You can get all your benefits because you're right on the ditch. My 40 is back here. I can't take all my benefits because I got to spend my own money to get my water over that ditch. So we got to leave some money back for that guy. So we take 85% of his benefits. If he's the next 40 back, we take 70% of his benefits. Because now he's got to get his water off through this 40 and through that 40 over there. Next is 60. How did we get those numbers? No, we had the engineer figure them out a long time ago. We go 100, 85, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, and we'll go back to, it's a huge system, we'll go back to maybe 20%, maybe 10%, and it's 10 the rest of the way, or 20 the rest of the way. Okay, so we take this times this is that. Net benefits. We made the auditors happy now. That's what they use as the net benefits. They consider this net benefits compared to the total net benefits. Well, if you're going to spend $10,000, how much is that guy going to pay? $438. You know, it's just a mathematical ratio. Okay? This is the column that the landowner wanted to see the whole time, and I bored you with all that other stuff. Okay? So if they spend, we usually use a 10,000 on a redetermination or 100,000 on a big one because you can move the number, move the decimal over, and you get your percentage if you want for that parcel. Roads, next one. Okay, this is just the road sheet. We do say the roads east of section 3, there's 1,980 feet, and we go through there and we go by construction savings now. Construction savings, and we've had engineers figure that out. Wish I had that sheet with me, but I better don't. The roads authorities used to, no, I don't. The road authorities used to pay just for their overland water. If it's a tar road, the D acres, whatever we had for D acres, say back then we had $30 for a D acre. The road authority would pay for a tar road maybe 4 times that, 120 per acre. Okay, they used to do that, but it says in the law book that the road authority is responsible for the road crossings. So I had a township over in Murray County years ago. It was a $20,000 bridge, and this little township had to put that in because that's what the book said. Okay, well there was a lawsuit up in Red Lake, up there years ago, and it said, yeah, the road authority has to put it in, but the viewers have to give you benefits and damages. So basically, the road authority has to put it in, but I got to give you the money. Okay, on new ditches, on a new ditch, it's going to cost that township $20,000. The system, that's those people that are using it, they have to give them $20,000. So now the roads aren't paying much at all. We got to find a different way to get the roads because they used to be at 8-9% of the total. I had one that was at 25% of the total. We had to adjust that because that isn't fair. It's got to be, in our minds, fair. So we go by construction savings. What the engineer has said, if you build a road through a slough, or if you build it, if it's drained, is there a cost savings? Well, yeah, there's a cost savings, construction savings to it. The ditch gave you that benefit. A B acre is a little bit much, and they told us it's like $200,000 per mile cheaper if you build it through a slough versus drained, 200,000. So then we can figure out how much it is per foot. Okay, so we look at the road and we say, are they A's, B's, C's, or D's? On this particular one, we didn't have any A's. This one must have had a little low spot because 5% were B's, 65% were C's, and the D's were the rest of them. That's how we get the road benefits. Let's see. One more thing. Oh, no. Go ahead. Start hitting them. It also says, remember all that 10, 11, 12 things that we have to send out? It says we have to give a benefits and damage statement. I like to call it the story. Benefits and damage statement. It basically says this is what we use, this is how we did it, this is why we did it. Next sheet. There's the values. Remember the reconciling that I said I went? There's the value to before any drainage. There's the value after recommended drainage, consideration benefits, road benefits. Go ahead, Nick. There's an example of it, 25-year. And this one we had a 5% cap rate. And the next one. And there's our worksheet that goes out to the landowners. Because the law book says we have to have that. And it says we have to have one more thing. Property owner's report. What this is it's a critique of this thing. It takes all these numbers on here and it writes it down for that particular individual. It says we have to have that too. Okay. Oh, what are the 4 things I was going to remember?
He just gave you a ton of information. You guys are interested, and I'm guessing some of you are overwhelmed with this. I find that I like to make this pretty simple when I talk to landowners at the landowner meetings. And basically I've come up with 4 things that determine what your benefits will be. The first one is acres. We assess by the acre. So obviously, if you want 100 acres, you're going to pay a greater assessment than somebody who wants 2 acres, because it's by the acre. The second one is the proximity that Jim talked about, how close you are to the county system. We give you a reduction for each 40 that you are removed from the county system. That will affect your benefits. The third one, probably the most important one, is soil type. We have the A, B, C, D soils. Sometimes we have A minuses, sometimes we have gravel, we have all sorts of things that we can use there. That affects your assessment. And the fourth one Jim already touched on was the county tile through your property. We think that's an advantage because it's easy access to the system. But that's the 4 things that affect, the basic 4 things that affect your drainage. And I'm talking here, this is generality. This is agricultural land. Sometimes you got lots of non-benefit acres, lots of woods and so on. But those 4 things I like to explain. That's a very simple way to tell people what their assessment is based on.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, sir.
Do you consider usage at all, where your water enters into the system? How much of the facility was needed for you?
Good question. He says I usually do that on some, say you got a big ditch system. It's an open ditch here and then you got tile back here, everything. And it's 7,000 acres in there. Well, this individual's got 40 acres right down here. He dumps in right at the outlet. And whatever we get him benefits, he's got to help pay for all that. Holy cow, I'm just dumping in right here. That's what you're saying, right? Yep, good question. Yes, we usually back it off some down here. We'll back off this parcel, this parcel, this parcel. Now all of a sudden you get back here and this guy has to go through all those other people. Then we're back up to 100%. Usually, it depends upon the system, but yes, we do that. Next question. Yes?
This determination then is used for the proposed given project, and then is that scheduled then to stay in place and used for future maintenance on that facility?
Yeah, first of all, this is just a redetermination of benefits, not an improvement. Ron's going to talk about improvement after dinner. But This is just for future maintenance, yes it is. That sheet that we had, the net benefits when we get it, that we're gonna give to the auditors, that's how they're gonna maintain that. If it's a county tile in there, and a county tile breaks, the county has to come and pay it. It's not the county, it's all you people that are in there. You know, I live in the same county, but I'm over here, I don't pay there. It's just the people inside the watershed. But yes, the auditor uses that to repair the system. If they're gonna improve it, then they use mine for separable maintenance, but then there's an improvement. He'll get to that, because that's,
So
Good.
you separate maintenance from improvement,
yep.
and you have two separate schedules for that?
Yes, yes we do. We have, I want to forget the other one here. Nope, I don't. We have two of these sheets when we do an improvement. One says redetermination. Oh, okay. One says redetermination, so that if they have something called separable maintenance, that's how they pay for that. Then we have another one that comes back, and that one says improvement. If you do that, this is the improvement. This is how you build this new improvement. After you get done, who's got the benefits? Well, we take this one and this one, add them up, because that's your improvement. Now, you had this much on the redetermination to start with, you get this much improvement, so who fixes it in 5 years? What did the auditor do? Puts these two together, because that's all your net benefits now. Yes, sir.
Do you ever bring in outlet assessments or fees if you find system, if you're bringing in acres, like you showed in your example?
Yeah, another good question. Outlet fees. If I'm outside this watershed, here's the watershed, goes this way, and I have land out here outside the watershed, I can't drain in there. Unless I petition. I can petition, but then I have to pay an outlet fee to get into it, because these guys built a system I didn't help at all. And we've done a lot of those. So we go back and calculate an outlet fee, a one-time payment of $2,000 to get that 40 in, or whatever it happens to be. Okay? Now, back when they had just the wet acres in this watershed, remember I said it was just wet acres, it was 2 acres for 40? Well, now I got 38 acres or 37 acres. I think his question is, do they have to pay an outlet fee to get in there, because they never helped? You know, this guy out here that had 1 acre, he only paid for 1 acre back in the day. Now I'm taking them all in because his water's coming my way. Is he going to pay an outlet fee on 39 acres?
If that's board directed,
Yeah.
I have done them in the past where during a redetermination, outlet fees were assessed against all previously non-benefited acres. Most drainage authorities say, no, at least we're getting everybody in. And the reason that you look at a redetermination is when a larger project or expense is going to be incurred. When you do an outlet, you have to look at the value of the system as it exists at the time of that outlet. So we've got a tile system that's 100 years old, and now we're going to charge you to outlet into that system, and then we're going to replace it all, so you get to pay maintenance on that system. No, it's like if Jim and I bought a car together, but Jim actually bought it in 1955, and now that the motor's shot and the tires need replacing, he says, you know what? Adjusted for inflation, your half is now $12,000. Well, he paid $6,000 for it originally.
I got one like
or
that.
$3,000. And besides that, now you get to pay for the new tires and the new motor, and half of that. So no, outlets are buying into the present value of the previously constructed system. So if it's 100 years old and it's nearly shot, I'm really not buying much, because I got to pay my share of replacing that with something that's going to work shortly anyway.
I have done those also because it was an old feud. Something happened in the early 80s. Get a lot of that. Early 80s were tough times for farmers. So there was an old feud, and they said they can't come in unless they pay. So then we paid them, and everybody went along with it because they wanted the improvement. But usually, no, we just take them in. They went like this to me.
I got one
Go ahead.
comment about redeterminations that I came up with when Jim was talking at the beginning about doing redeterminations and how once a redetermination is done, how everybody's going to help pay and acquire that buffer strip. If the sole purpose is to establish a buffer strip, the criteria for establishing value may be way different than the drainage values. So if the system's in good shape The areas are out there, and we're just trying to get everybody to pay for the buffer. We as viewers may come up with different values than we would for drainage. So just, it's part of it. The purpose of the buffer for most of us is preventative maintenance on the drainage system. The water quality is just another benefit that we don't consider, because we're not looking at water quality value when we're doing a redetermination. We are the assessor's office going back, and after 50 years going out and say, you know, there's been a lot of houses and remodeling done on those houses. Maybe we should quit assessing our taxes based on something that existed 100 years ago. So let's go out and revalue what already exists.
Okay, we got a break. They want to get down. Road guy, I do have those here. The road stuff for a state highway, 200,000, interstate highway, 300,000, those numbers if you want to take a look at them. And here's one more that I should have printed off for everybody. It's Minnesota brain teasers, towns, a whole bunch of words on here. I've only got one copy, sorry. But example, this one says not muddy, H2O. What's the town of Minnesota that's not muddy, H2O? Clearwater, see? You guys passed.
There's a Moose Lake too.
Moose Lake. Okay, that's all I have. If you have questions for us, they want to get you down there. If you have questions, look us up and ask us.